A house for less than $10,000? You're probably thinking it's a scam or maybe an abandoned shack in the middle of nowhere. But it's not. These are real places, real homes. And some of them cost less than your last vacation or your last iPhone. Welcome to the side of the American housing market no one wants you to see. Entire towns are quietly selling for pocket change, haunted mining outposts, forgotten hippie havens, and desert villages with more legends than streetlights. Some of them give land away for free. Others come with a catch: ghosts, raccoon gangs, or 110-degree summers. But here's the twist: people are moving in. Let's dive into 10 of the weirdest, cheapest, and most surprisingly desirable places to buy a home in America right now. You won't believe where we're starting. In Bisbee, Arizona, you can find a house for less than $10,000. Not a trailer, not a broken down RV, but an actual house. Sure, it might need a roof and possibly an exorcism, but it's yours, deed in hand. Welcome to one of the quirkiest, most misfit-friendly towns in the American Southwest, where the weirdness is part of the property value. Once a booming copper mining town carved into the Mule Mountains, Bisbee was all grit and glory in the early 1900s. Miners packed the hills. Saloons spilled whiskey and secrets. Then came the collapse. The mines shut down, the jobs vanished, and Bisbee nearly became a ghost town until the artists moved in. Today, Bisbee is a mix of crumbling Victorian architecture, steep staircases, murals on brick walls, and characters who look like they stepped out of a Tim Burton film. The town smells like incense, desert dust, and fresh coffee. You'll find bookstores that also sell tarot cards, and old bars that serve both craft beer and conspiracy theories. It's the kind of place where a haunted hotel is also the town's proudest landmark. But let's talk numbers. In some corners of Bisbee, you can still snag a property for under $10,000. It won't be move-in ready, but that's not the point. This is fixer-upper paradise for dreamers, drifters, or retirees with a hammer and time. The cost of living, low, internet, surprisingly decent. Crime, minimal, unless you count unsolicited harmonica playing. Locals describe Bisbee as the town that refused to die, and they mean it. There's a quiet, scrappy energy here, a sense that you're not just buying a house, you're buying into a strange little experiment in desert resilience, counterculture, and second chances. One Redditor put it best: Bisbee is where you go when you're done pretending to be normal. The houses are weird, the people are weirder. But you'll never feel more welcome in your life. And if you think a $10,000 house is wild, just wait until you hear about the town where the name alone scares people away. The name alone sounds made up. Truth or consequences. It feels like a failed game show or a forgotten morality play. But it's real. It's a town. And for around $45,000, it could be yours. Originally named Hot Springs, this sleepy desert town in southern New Mexico rebranded itself in 1950 after a radio contest dared any city to adopt the show's name. One town said yes, and that strange decision set the tone for everything that followed. T, or C as locals call it, isn't polished. It's sun-bleached, heat-warped, and full of the kind of people who believe in UFOs, hot springs, and starting over. There are murals of lizards in cowboy boots, grocery store clerks who hand out ghost stories with your receipt, and streets that feel like they're trying their best not to blow away. But beneath that strangeness is a slow magic. This town sits atop a geothermal wonderland. Natural hot springs bubble beneath old motels and rehabbed bathhouses. Steam rises off desert rocks like it's escaping the Earth's secrets. Some locals swear the waters heal everything from arthritis to heartbreak. Now let's talk real estate. For under $50,000, you can find a small adobe home with a porch that overlooks either mountains or miracles, depending on the day. It won't be fancy. You might have to patch a roof or fight off a few scorpions. But you'll have solitude, sunshine, and access to natural hot tubs that never close. The cost of living? About as low as the speed limits. Internet? Not bad, considering it's sandwiched between spaceports and ghost towns. Safety? It's the kind of place where neighbors still wave and occasionally yell at clouds. Nothing too alarming. A Reddit user once wrote, "Living in T or C is like living in an indie film that never quite explains itself." And they're right. There's a strange rhythm to this place. It's quiet, then suddenly loud, peaceful, then bizarre, but always, always genuine. Truth or consequences isn't for everyone, but if you've ever wanted to live somewhere that feels like a riddle wrapped in a desert sunburn, it might be calling your name. And if you think a town with a name like that is weird, wait until you meet the next one, where homes go for the price of a used scooter and the air smells like forgotten time. In Eureka Springs, Arkansas, you can find homes listed for as low as $24,000. That's not a typo. That's a down payment in most cities, but here, it might just buy you the whole house. Of course, you'll have to share it with the ghosts. Tucked into the Ozark Mountains, Eureka Springs looks like a Victorian postcard that someone forgot to update since 1897. Winding hills, gingerbread houses clinging to cliffs, balconies that lean just a little too far. It's a town where nothing is flat. Not the roads, not the real estate market, and definitely not the stories. Eureka Springs was built around healing springs, natural waters once believed to cure everything from tuberculosis to bad vibes. And in some ways, it still tries. The town is now a magnet for artists, wanderers, and anyone chasing something they can't quite name. But cheap homes come with strange trade-offs. For around $24,000, you could own a two-bedroom cottage tucked into a hillside, complete with creaky floors, ivy-covered porches, and at least one room that feels off. One local joke goes, if your house isn't haunted, it's probably new, and nobody here trusts new. Still, there's something magnetic about Eureka Springs. The whole town feels like it's humming with leftover energy. There are underground tunnels that lead nowhere, staircases that end in shrubs, and antique stores that might sell you a doll with a criminal record. Crime rate, low. Weirdness rate, off the charts. Some visitors come for the ghost tours and never leave. Others come for the crystal shops, the drag shows, the haunted hotel, and find themselves buying property because something in the air whispered, stay. A Redditor once posted, living in Eureka is like being inside a Halloween movie that got too cozy to leave. And honestly, that's the charm. You don't move here for normal. You move here for poetry scratched into stone walls, for townspeople who dress like Civil War ghosts, and for houses that creak back at you. And if Eureka Springs sounds a bit too dreamy for you, just wait until we head deeper into the desert, to a town where $43,000 buys you a view of infinity, and not a single soul will judge your fashion choices, your politics, or your off-grid fantasies. Marfa is where people go when reality gets boring. For around $43,000, you can own a house in the middle of nowhere, and yet somehow in the center of everything. Desert, silence, stars, art, also occasional aliens. This is West Texas, after all. The town feels like someone dared a Prada store, a UFO sighting, and a minimalist sculptor to co-parent a community. The result? Marfa, a remote town that makes no sense and yet makes perfect sense to those who live there. Originally a railroad water stop turned military base turned artistic mecca, Marfa is now a bizarre blend
ଇଞ୍ଜିନିୟର
of
କାମ
cowboy
କରୁଛନ୍ତି
grit
ନାଇଁ?
and avant-garde
ତାହେଲେ ଆମ
installation.
ଓଡ଼ିଆ ଭାଷାରେ ରାଜମିସ୍ତ୍ରୀ।
You'll see dusty pickup trucks parked beside mirrored art cubes, cattle grazing in fields with satellite dishes, ranchers arguing about property lines while sipping organic kombucha. But here's the part no one tells you. There are actual houses in Marfa under $43,000. They're not in the artsy district, and you won't find them on Airbnb. But they exist. Tired adobe structures with warped floors, tin roofs, and just enough charm to make you believe in starting over. Fixer-uppers, yes, but full of sky and solitude. Living in Marfa means living in contradictions. The town is tiny but globally known. It's quiet, yet creatively loud. You'll meet locals who've been here for 6 generations, and others who arrived last week with a typewriter and a dream. Some people come chasing art. Others chase the Marfa lights, those mysterious, glowing orbs that hover in the desert and refuse to explain themselves. One Redditor said, Marfa is like Burning Man if it settled down and bought a porch. And they're not wrong. It's weird in a way that doesn't try to impress you. It just is. No one cares what you do for work. Or if you even work. But if you're kind, they'll hand you a beer and point you toward the best view of the Milky Way. Marfa doesn't scream opportunity, it hums mystery. And sometimes that's all you need. Still think $43,000 is a wild deal for desert peace? Just wait until we head east, to a place where the houses are cheap, the politics are loud, and the town smells like patchouli and revolution. For around $81,800, you can buy a home in Yellow Springs, Ohio, a town where peace signs outnumber stop signs, and everyone smells faintly of incense or fresh-baked sourdough. It's the kind of place where you come to escape capitalism, then accidentally open a co-op. Yellow Springs isn't cheap by ghost town standards, but compared to the rest of the country, it's a quiet steal. Especially when what you're buying isn't just square footage. It's a front row seat to America's most persistent pocket of progressive utopia. The town is small, just a few thousand people, but loud in its convictions. It's where artists, professors, retirees, and accidental anarchists collide over farmers markets and poetry slams. Everyone knows your name, your dog's name, and what kombucha flavor you're currently brewing. Houses here go for under 85K if you know where to look. They're cozy. Slightly crooked, probably painted in earth tones, most come with a garden, a clothesline, and at least one spiritual object left behind by the previous owner. You might not believe in chakras when you move in, but give it a few weeks. Yellow Springs is surrounded by forests, bike trails, and just enough mystery to make it feel insulated from the outside world. No chain stores, no fast food, just mom and pop everything and the occasional hemp workshop. Dave Chappelle lives here, but no one makes a big deal about it. That's kind of the town's vibe. Famous, but not flashy. Passionate, but not preachy, mostly. A Redditor once described it as a hippie town that actually practices what it preaches. And they're right. You'll find rainbow flags in every yard, drum circles in the park, and handmade protest signs from marches dating back decades. It's the kind of place that teaches kids how to compost before they can spell it. But don't mistake kindness for naivety. Yellow Springs is fiercely protective of its weirdness. Outsiders are welcome, but only if they don't try to change it. So if you're craving a slower, greener, groovier life, and you've got $81,800 or less to spare, you might find your tribe right here in the cornfields of Ohio. And if you think this town is eccentric, hold on. We're heading to a place where elevation is high, rivers run cold, and $1,000 land buys you adrenaline, not peace. In Salida, Colorado, land goes for less than $1,000 an acre if you're willing to go far enough into the mountains and deep enough into off-grid living. It's not just a town, it's a test of patience, altitude tolerance, and whether your SUV can double as a bedroom. Salida calls itself the heart of the Rockies, and it's not wrong. This town is hugged by snow-capped peaks and stitched together with cold, rushing rivers. It looks like a postcard, but one printed by someone who's into backcountry skiing and solar panels. You won't find sleek developments or manicured lawns out here. What you'll find is dirt. Glorious, unclaimed dirt. Parcels of raw land where you can pitch a yurt, build a tiny home, or finally test out that dream of becoming a goat farmer with a view. Some say Salida is for loners. Others say it's for visionaries. The truth is, it's both. This is where burnt-out tech workers come to chop firewood, where yoga teachers trade downward dog for mountain dogs, where people pay $950 plus for an acre and call it cheap therapy. There are homes here too, but if you're looking at the sub $1,000 per acre price point, you're likely looking at dirt roads, well water, and the kind of peace that might make you question your own thoughts. No streetlights, no Starbucks. Just stars, and the occasional howling coyote that may or may not be judging your tent setup. One Redditor wrote, "Living near Salida is like camping forever, with slightly better plumbing if you get lucky." And honestly, that's the charm. You're not just buying land, you're buying a mood, a lifestyle, a commitment to wood stoves and waterproof boots. Weather here comes in extremes. Summers are glorious, winters are borderline medieval. But if you can handle frozen pipes and unpredictable solar power, you'll be rewarded with skies that melt your brain and neighbors who communicate exclusively through nods. Salida isn't for everyone, but if you're chasing freedom measured in acres instead of square feet, this place might be your promised land. And if that sounds remote, wait until we land in a town where spiritual seekers, mystics, and dirt cheap houses coexist under one very strange New Mexico sky. Taos isn't just a town, it's a vortex. A spiritual blender of artists, outlaws, and old souls looking for silence, vision, or cheap land. And for around $1,500 an acre, you can buy a slice of this high desert weirdness and call it home, assuming the energy agrees with you. This isn't Santa Fe with its polished adobe and curated galleries. Taos is wilder. Stranger, raw. It's where Georgia O'Keeffe met the wind, where mystics and hippies built earthships in the '70s and forgot to leave. Where retirees go to reconnect with nature and sometimes end up barefoot, painting coyotes on clay tiles. The town itself is small, just a handful of streets, dusty charm, and more than a few shops that sell crystals, woven blankets, and possibly enlightenment. But the land outside Taos? That's where things get interesting. Remote parcels stretching into the distance. Some accessible, some not. Some wired to the grid. Others powered by sun, wind, and sheer stubbornness. For around $2,500 an acre, you can get land with views that hurt your feelings. Wide open sky, mountains that change color at dusk, and silence that either heals you or drives you slightly mad. You'll likely have to build everything from scratch: water, power, shelter, sanity. But that's part of the appeal. Locals speak of Taos with reverence and warning. One Redditor said, "Taos doesn't let you live here unless you're meant to." And people believe that. There's talk of a mysterious low-frequency hum that some residents hear and others swear doesn't exist. Some say it's the earth. Others say it's just your blood pressure adjusting to the altitude. Life in Taos is not convenient. Groceries are expensive. Weather is dramatic. And neighbors might be coyotes or a potter named Moon who only eats raw plants and reads your aura. But there's magic here, strange, humming, half-buried magic. And if you're patient, the land might welcome you. So, if you've got a few $1,000s and a soul that's a little dusty, Taos might just be your unfinished sentence. But if high-altitude harmony isn't your thing, don't worry. The next town sits on the edge of a southern swamp and costs less than your last tax refund. St. Mary's, Georgia feels like the kind of town where time forgot to keep ticking. Spanish moss drips from ancient oaks. The air smells like salt and memory. And for around $1,000 an acre, you could own a piece of that slow southern stillness. If you're okay with foggy mornings and whispers that might not all come from humans. Sitting quietly near the Florida border, this coastal town is the last breath of Georgia before the ocean takes over. It's old, older than most of America. Cobblestone streets, Civil War ruins, wooden porches that lean like they've heard too much. It's the kind of place where you expect to see a rocking chair moving, even when the porch is empty. St. Mary's isn't flashy, there are no skyscrapers, no billboards, and no rush. Instead, you get a town dock that smells like shrimp, wild marshes that change color with the light, and locals who speak in slow drawls and unexpected wisdom. And then there's the real estate. For roughly $1,000 an acre, less than the price of a beach weekend in Miami, you can buy raw land on the edge of these forgotten wetlands. Some parcels have trees older than your family tree. Others back up to creeks where alligators cruise past like locals with strong opinions. You'll need vision, mosquito nets, and possibly a canoe. Electricity? Maybe. Internet? Sort of. But peace? Absolutely. There's a quiet here that feels earned, like the town has survived too many hurricanes to be bothered by your deadline stress. Locals say St. Mary's is for people who still write letters and believe in ghosts. A Redditor once described it as Gothic coastal serenity, like Savannah but without the tour buses. And they're not wrong. You'll find cemeteries older than your state, diners with 5 generations behind the counter, and stories that start with, "I shouldn't be telling you this, but..." You don't just move to St. Mary's. You settle into it like a stone at the bottom of the river. It's soft, slow, and a little haunted, but in a beautiful way. And if you think that's old school, the next town offers mountain lakes, Baptist churches, and wide open land for the price of a used couch. Monticello, Kentucky. A town where, for less than $10,000, you might not just buy a home, you might accidentally become the mayor, postmaster, and sheriff all in the same week. Tucked deep in the foothills of Appalachia, Monticello doesn't try to impress you. There's no curated charm or boutique district. What you get is raw Kentucky, rusted trucks and overgrown yards, old barns sagging into soft earth, and churches that outnumber grocery stores. It's quiet here, and heavy. The kind of quiet that feels like it knows things. You can find homes, real, standing homes, for under $10,000. They may have peeling paint, cracked windows, and plumbing that sounds like it's negotiating, but they come with land, trees, silence, and something else you can't quite name. A vibe, a warning, a challenge? Life in Monticello is simple or hard, sometimes both. People grow what they eat, fix what they break, and say what they mean, unless they mean something darker. It's the kind of place where a smile from a stranger means something, and so does a long pause. Crime? Low. But that doesn't mean it's calm. There's tension in the air here, like a banjo string tuned too tight. It's not dangerous. It's just alive in a different way. Locals know every creak in their porch steps, every dog bark on their block, and every newcomer who doesn't look like they belong. One Redditor summed it up. Living in Monticello is like being in a forgotten Stephen King novel, minus the murders, hopefully. And that tracks. It's beautiful and eerie, generous and guarded. Some folks move here for the land. Others stay because it refuses to let them go. If you can handle the isolation and maybe the occasional porch opossum, this place offers peace that money can't buy and stories that write themselves. But if Monticello feels a little too shadowed for your taste, just wait. The next town is cheaper, sweeter, and somehow even stranger. So there you have it. 10 towns across America where owning land or a home costs less than your last dentist bill. From ghost stories and fiddle tunes to desert quiet and swamp whispers, each of these places offers something money can't usually buy: character, mystery, a sense that you've stumbled into the footnotes of the American dream. They're not perfect, they're not polished, but maybe that's the point. If one of these towns sparked something in you, a memory, a craving, a plan you didn't know you had, don't keep it to yourself. Drop a comment. Tell us which place you dare to live in. Hit like if you've ever searched cheap towns to disappear into. And subscribe, because the next town might be even cheaper, weirder, or wilder than this list. You're not just looking for a home, you're looking for a story. Let's go find it. In Mountain View, Arkansas, land has sold for less than $500. That's not a typo. That's not a monthly payment. That's the total. For the price of a secondhand banjo, you could own your own piece of folk music heaven, assuming you're okay with banjos never really stopping. This is the self-proclaimed folk music capital of the world. A town where the square fills with fiddles on warm evenings, and old-timers pass songs down the way others pass heirlooms. It's not performative. It's cultural muscle memory. Here, everyone plays something, and if you don't, someone will hand you a washboard and fix that real quick. Mountain View doesn't care about modern trends, it cares about rhythm, about gathering, about knowing who your neighbors are and who their grandparents were. You won't find microbreweries or yoga studios here, but you will find homemade jams sold out of car trunks, porch-picking circles that go till midnight, and fried pie stands judged by how flaky your crust turns out. And then there's the land. Pockets of it, undeveloped, untouched, have gone for less than $500. That's not typical, of course, but it happens. Especially if you're looking in the wooded edges where internet is a rumor and plumbing is a suggestion. A Redditor once called it Mayberry with a side of deliverance. Fair, but also misleading. Yes, it's rural. Yes, it's deeply Arkansas. But it's also warm. Surprisingly open. You might not fit in at first, but show up to a jam session, play something heartfelt, or at least stay in rhythm, and you'll earn your place. Mountain View is cheap, not because it's broken, but because it refuses to charge extra for simplicity. Here, time doesn't move slowly. It just doesn't care that you're in a rush. The town hums with a different kind of music, one you don't just hear but absorb. And if that sounds like a dream, then maybe it is. But hey, $500 dreams are hard to come by these days.